what do I do with this thing? What's up, guys? Welcome back to Leveling Up with CMH. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is brain science. I think that the human interface is the next big, tech bubble burst, whatever you want to call it. The next massive achievement for mankind is the human interface, meaning you and me, whether that's, what Elon Musk talks about with the singularity, with merging with AI, merging with technology. As he basically says we're already cyborgs, right? These things are connected to us at the hip. Pretty soon they'll be connected with a little hole in your head and you can just immediately pull data from Google just like that. Pretty crazy. So in the meantime, part of my journey is I had a health crisis, and for a long period of time we thought that it might be brain related. Turned out that it was the gut-brain axis, and that there was some serious gut disruption that we had that was causing me to have the neurological conditions that I was presenting. ADD, depression, anxiety, those things, right? So we were treating it as such. We were treating with various amino acids and 5-HTP to be specific, and some others. And so part of that was we did neurofeedback therapy, all right? And so I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about that, and I want to talk to you about a device that I recommend that you look into that is probably going to be your best bang for buck, albeit I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of it as well. This is called a Muse S. This is a Muse S, and this is the Muse. This is the original Muse. So I'm going to talk about both of those, pros and cons of each, as well as give you an insight on neuroplasticity and neurofeedback therapy. So let's understand what these two are. So neurofeedback therapy, I want to make sure I read this to you guys. Neurofeedback therapy finds abnormalities in brainwave signals and then uses sound frequencies to move them back to normal patterns. So basically what it is, and I have a picture of it somewhere, and I'll try to find it, include it with so you guys can see it. But basically it's fitted, we put the gel over your hair and they fit it with the cap, right? They put the cap over you and it has those electrodes and it's reading your brainwave signals. What we find is with a good practitioner is they'll be able to identify with their equipment, they'll be able to see certain parts of the brain that are abnormal in relation to its synchronicity with other parts and other regions of the brain, meaning they're operating at different frequencies, right? So the brain is constantly emitting these signals and operating with certain frequencies. So you may have heard people talk about, beta, theta, alpha, delta, things of that nature, right? You may have heard people talk about that. So the premise of it is that sometimes, due to a variety of reasons, there are abnormalities that can present, right? And so what neurofeedback therapy does is a practitioner will see certain regions of the brain that have the abnormality. It will then, and you're listening via audio, right? You'll have headphones on. They will then emit certain sounds that will target that region of your brain, and through literal sound frequencies, you will simulate the frequency that you want to manifest in that part of the brain. The idea being that you would rebalance with every other region of the brain. So they can be very strategic about identifying and pinpointing those specific areas and then finding a harmonious balance with the rest of the brain. Now, the beautiful thing of that is this, and this leads us to the second point I want to talk about, which is neuroplasticity, right? So what is neuroplasticity? What was once believed to be the case is no longer the case. We thought that the brain is what it is, right? It doesn't grow, it is what it is, not a muscle. You can't strengthen it, you can't change it, it's not malleable, right? And we know that's no longer the case. And in some extreme cases, we've actually seen some people through neuroplasticity. I'm going to give you some examples of what it can help with, because this is important. But both neuroplasticity and our understanding of it makes this possible through neurofeedback therapy. But it can help with ADD or ADHD, addiction, autism, brain injuries, anxiety, OCD, PD, which is Parkinson's disease, sleep disorders, stress. That's just to name a few. There's a list about a mile long. And in some cases, guys, and I've read a lot about neuroplasticity, it is really, really amazing. But people have actually reclaimed their eyesight, right? They were blind, legally blind, were able to reclaim their eyesight. So basically, we can intentionally grow and train the brain in ways to reteach our body to heal itself in certain ways, which I know that sounds really like woo-woo, and you're like, oh my God, yeah, right, whatever. But I'm telling you, I've read the science, I've read the studies behind. It is a cutting edge way of, it's not even a miracle, guys. Like when you read these studies, it makes total sense the way things are working, the way that it's happening. And it's the whole mind over matter principle. And whether you agree or disagree with that, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that it has a large amount of merit to it. So what you do is you get a neurofeedback practitioner, a neurofeedback therapist that helps you do these things, and many of which help people with that are on the autism spectrum, that have OCD, mental disorders. Head injuries is another one we haven't talked about. That's a really, really prominent one. Actually, in my case, one of the abnormalities we found was I have a scar right here. When I was younger, I hit my head on the edge of a doghouse, like one of those dog houses in a backyard. I hit that, and we actually could see that on my scans, which is pretty wild, right? So we actually addressed that, and there's various exercises that they have you do to kind of simulate, right? When you find out what that targeted region is or where that abnormality is presenting, you then have exercises that they have you do, plus you go back for multiple sessions of neurofeedback therapy. Now, these can get quite costly, right? Even I think I was paying $150 to $200 a session, and that was on the very cheap end of the spectrum, right? So these can get very, very expensive in some cases, and maybe your insurance will pay for it, maybe it won't. But I would assume this can be viewed as more of, an elective type thing, right? It's not an essential type of a practice that you're going to be engaging with, and as such, you probably would have a difficult time unless you were diagnosed and sent as a from a family practitioner to a specialist that does neurofeedback therapy. You might find it to be difficult to have your insurance cover that. So bottom line is this: you are absolutely going to spend more to go to a neurofeedback therapist, right? But here's the deal, and this is what I want to introduce you to because this has made a profound difference for me. One of the things that we know is that while neurofeedback therapy deserves its praise, right? Because those people are trained professionals at what they do. They have data points that you cannot gather without them, period. You just can't. But here's the deal. You and me sitting at home, we can still take advantage of neuroplasticity. And one of the best ways we can do that is meditation, right? So I think a lot of people don't understand, and people drive me crazy when they say, the gym is my meditation. Gardening is my meditation. No. There is no substitute for meditation. There's just not, right? And so we know through studies, through research, we can see actual neurological rewiring in the brain after just 4 days of 15 minutes of meditation. That's it. That's all it takes. So literally, guys, when you're doing this and you are lowering your brain into a lower brainwave state, you will see similar results, albeit maybe not as astronomical and not as targeted as you would see working with a neurofeedback therapist, right? So that brings me to what I want to talk about, to introduce you to the Muse and the Muse devices, because I'm a firm believer. Actually, they just sent me the Muse S. This was back ordered for months and months and months. Shout out to Ariel Gardner and her team at Muse because they were tremendous. Ariel is actually going to come on the show. I will link that when she comes on my podcast so you guys can watch that as well. Really cutting edge science, and it brings it to your home. Guys, I'm not affiliated. I'm not a sponsor, so I don't get paid for this at all. It's just a profound, powerful tool. I myself am a biohacker. I'm always looking for the next enhancement, a way to improve myself and also deal with the issues that I've experienced, right? I'm still, even with, the health revamp that I've done with, healing and sealing my gut, and really paying attention to that, I still have neurological conditions, right? Like my focus still is really hit or miss. I can still be spacey, and as you can probably tell, listening to me, I can be all over the place with my messaging and stuff like that. So it's difficult for me still. I still have neurological issues that I experience that I think are different from, or at least unique from a lot of people. So let's first talk about the Regular Muse, right? You can find this device, and I think at this point you can probably spend less than a couple $100s on it. This is the original. So as you see, it comes in this, kind of box cardboard case, and I try to leave it in here because I keep all the charger and stuff like that, and this keeps it protected. So I swore by this device. I had it for years. As you'll see, it's just a plastic device, and I'm going to show some close-ups here of the product as well as I'm kind of, showing this to you guys. But the way it works is you probably want to take your glasses off if you wear them, but it has, again, I'll show close-ups here. It has these various sensors on it, right? Along the front, along your forehead, and then along the sides and the ridges right above your ears, okay? So what you do is, it's going to sync up with your phone, and you put it on like mid forehead and it wraps around your ears, right? And you want to make sure you really pull it tight, right? Make sure it's, as firm as can be, because all of these sensors need to be touching the surface of your skin. You may need to wipe it off with, you can use like a little cloth or something like that with water. If you have like greasy skin or oily skin or what have you, you put some kind of products like lotions and stuff, it might need to be cleaned. These sensors might need to be cleaned off. But effectively what it's going to be doing at that point is going to be reading your brainwave signals much the same, albeit not to the same capacity as what neurofeedback therapy does. So effectively what it's going to do is this. You are going to turn on, you can start a session on the app. I'm going to be showing you guys the app here shortly. But as you're going through the app, you'll see you can start sessions, different time periods, durations, different sounds you can download, so on and so forth. And you start a session. Now, here's where it's really, really positive and why I think this is amazing. So as you're going through a session, you'll notice that either you're going to hear a variety of different sounds, right? Because it's going to read your brainwave signals. I'm going to take this off now while I'm talking to you guys. And basically what it is that when you start hearing it storm or it's like a loud, things get louder and what have you, it means your brain is in an active state, right? You're thinking a lot, and you'll notice, you can test it. You'll start thinking about things, your mind starts to wander, and you'll hear the sound. And what that does is it reminds you in that moment, it trains the brain to, okay, I got to snap back out, I got to focus, right? I got to, or lack thereof, right? I have to just stay calm, stay present, stay in the moment, right? Things that really are tough for type A people with, ADD, OCD, those things. Like, it's really difficult for them to do those things. Now, when you really hit that flow state, when you really get into that Zen state, you'll hear calmness when you're neutral. When you really hit that theta range, right, that flow state, when you're really in that meditative state, you'll start hearing birds chirping. Now, there's a reason I like this. For one, I like the reminder of it telling me, hey, you're distracted, recalibrate, right? But I like the reward mechanism for a variety of reasons that are all in terms of biofeedback. I love that because here's the deal. When you are rewarded, when the brain is rewarded, it gets that dopamine hit of, I'm doing this right. I want to keep doing it. I want to keep pushing into theta. I want to keep pushing into flow state. What you're doing is you are training the brain to delve further and further into that healing theta range, right? And that healing deep meditative state. And the more you do that, the more the birds chirp, right? So I love that because I know I'm doing it right. A lot of people struggle with meditation because they know that it's impactful, they know that it's powerful, but they struggle to do it because they're like, am I doing this right? Like, is this really working? So I like the feedback, the instant feedback, the constant feedback loop of knowing that I'm doing it right versus doing it wrong. And then I love the data that you can pull. So at the end of your session, you can actually look at the data. So it gives you awards. It tells you things you did well, things you didn't do well, how many times you're able to correct when you got a little bit distracted and pulled yourself back in. These are all mechanisms, guys, that outside the data points will show your progress. But also, too, it's literally like going to the gym for your brain, right? Like every time you do that, every time you can recalibrate and refocus and retrain the mind to enter back into that meditative flow state, you're training it for how to do it in the real world. And I can tell you firsthand that using this device, I start knowing what it feels like. Some people, they can't detach, they can't disengage. They're constantly on edge. They can't go to sleep at night because they're so wound up. Knowing what it feels like and having the brain remember what that place feels like and how to arrive there. It's like having training wheels on a bicycle. Eventually you take them off and you just know how to ride without them. This is the equivalence of that. This is going to help you achieve just that, but doing it at a fraction of the cost of what going to neurofeedback therapy would cost. In fact, you're probably going to spend what you probably would spend in one session, and you own the device forever. You don't pay for the data. You have it 100%. The app is free. It comes with it. There are some bonus features with the S I'm going to talk about that cost a little bit more money. But overall, guys, that's kind of the gist of it. That's the original Muse. Now let me talk to you about the benefits of the S and why I think you should consider this device over the regular, even though it's a little bit more expensive. I think it's like $300 to $400 versus, a couple $100. But here's the deal. So I was having some issues with my regular Muse, okay? The reason being is that it's plastic and it can only bend and mold around my head so much, right? And so the problem is that I was having interference, right? I was losing connection, meaning the device and its electrodes could no longer pick up my brainwave signal. So the signal was dropping. The problem with that is that if you're trying to meditate and you're having signal drops, you kind of it's in your mind that the whole time you're probably going to lose your signal again. So you're not able to really engage in the moment and be present. Now, it's probably just because I have a weird shaped head. I don't know, because I had no issues, and then all of a sudden I started having issues. But to me, the benefit of this device, a couple of them, is this is a headband. So it's going to fit and conform to anyone's head, right? So let's go ahead and put it on. I can show you what it looks like. Again, I'll show close-ups here. You can see the electrodes, the sensors here on the inside of the headband, and then along the side that's going to go behind your ear. So it's all right there for you, which is awesome. But then what you do is you just strap this thing on, position it, make sure it's touching your ears, and then you can tighten it in the back. But this thing is on there, right? It's fantastic. Like, in the only part of it that I have to make sure to maintain that's not part of the headband is you can pop off, the actual, centerpiece here, and this is where actually all the data is recorded and stuff like that and stored. So anyways, I love this because if you do have that issue, to me, this is fantastic. It's also much easier for travel, and it's much better for being able to clean it, right? So you can actually wash this. I was told you could wash it via hand, right? Don't put it in your dishwasher, or your laundry or anything like that. But you can wash it by hand, very gently wash it by hand, obviously taking off the centerpiece, which pops off pretty easily. It's just magnetized. See, it just pops right off. So that's that. Couple added benefits of this, and if you're familiar with the Calm app, I think you'll really like this. But there are stories, right? You can listen to bedtime stories. There's little activities and things you can do. There's a lot more variety of different things that you can do that you couldn't do before that are more sleep, kind of focused on sleep, calmness, different type sessions you can do. So there's just more variety of activities that weren't included with the Regular Muse and with the Regular Muse app. So I think those are really, really beneficial. For me, when I travel, which, is somewhat often, to me, this case is tremendous, right? Because I can put this case anywhere and I'm ready to rock and roll. With the other one, I'm worried about the plastic breaking. And also, too, if you really look at it, having to carry this box around everywhere I go is just not ideal. And, you're just worried, right? If you fly and you're on a plane and you checked your bags, who knows? Those guys could be throwing bags around and stuff like that and breaking or, destroying your device. You just have no idea. And it's a multi-$100 device, right? So for me, this can go in my backpack, my travel backpack, no problem. I can just slide it in there. I can do it on the plane. It's no problem. You're not going to look like a weirdo with some plastic thing on your head. This looks like a headband for all intents and purposes. So you're relatively good. Now, let's talk about pros and cons. I think I've already mentioned that. Let's make sure we recap. So this to me taps into the benefit of neuroplasticity, right? It is going to actually help you reshape and train your brain in ways you maybe didn't think were possible. You're going to achieve things eventually that maybe you didn't think were in the cards for you, right? That said, if you have severe issues, right? If you are on the extreme side of ADD, OCD, Parkinson's, you have a head injury, stress, anxiety, it is a somewhat life-threatening or life-altering wherever you are with what's going on with your condition specifically, I would really consider going a step beyond a Muse device and looking into neurofeedback therapy. And the reason being is because those data points are everything. That's really what you're paying for, guys, is that expert advice and guidance and the ability to have those data points available, right? You're not going to get that with the Muse device. You will get to see overall where you're at with brain function, with your brain waves, but you won't be able to identify specific regions and how they're acting. Maybe in the future, right, you'll be able to see where those abnormalities are manifesting, and there will be an advanced version of Muse where you can do the same things that a practitioner can currently do. But to say right now that that's currently what's provided in this device at a fraction of the cost, it's just not the case, right? It's just not the case. But I think it's a great start. I think if you respond well to this, I think if you go get one of these devices and you say, let's just give it a shot. I don't know about this neuroplasticity thing. I watched this random video on YouTube. I don't know if this guy knows what he's talking about, but hey, I'll try it out. A couple $100, let's see where things go. If you see improvements, if you stay committed to it, I do 15 minutes every single day. If you see improvements from it, if you feel better, if you feel like you're operating at a different level, if you feel like your autism has gotten better, or your child's autism has gotten better, or their ADD or their OCD or whatever's gotten better, this is like the appetizer. You may realize like, hey, we're going to use the Muse at home, and then we're going to go do a couple neurofeedback therapy sessions a couple times a month, right? Or once a week, or whatever the case may be, right? So that's what I would recommend. I think it's a great introduction in neurofeedback therapy. which, by the way, is a form of biofeedback. So if you hear biofeedback, neurofeedback is a form of biofeedback. So anyways, I hope this video has served as an intro for you. I hope it gives you a little bit more clarity on what this actually entails. Just know that the brain can change in ways that we did not think were previously possible, and that should be great news for you. That's great news for me. To me, that changed the game. I saw things through a different lens, and I was excited about the possibilities, whereas before I was really down in the dumps about, oh, this is the brain that I got, and I just have to deal with it, and if it's not working the way that I want it to, too bad, right? So you can change. It's just like going to the gym, right? You can exercise your brain in much the same ways. I would also throw diet and lifestyle in there as well as just as important, if not more important. So hope this video was helpful. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to include the links below to the Muse device. Again, I am not an affiliate, just a super fan of the product. And again, make sure to keep an eye on those links below. Also link it above my head if the interview's already happened with Ariel, the CEO and founder of Muse. And I'll see you guys in the next one.